Okay, guys, this video is for the revision of trigonometry functions. Okay, so we're going to do some revisions on the graph sketching. But before we start, let me show you some of the solutions in the trigonometry revision exercise I give you. Okay, so I would just because of the time, I can't show you all the solutions. Okay, so I just screw down the files so you could see how the solution works. You can freeze the screen, try to learn, try to do your own study. All right. So these are paper 1 questions about writing the exact value of trigonometry ratios. Okay, and these are solving trigonometry equations. Okay. And again, more solving trigonometry equations. But this time, the angle is compound angle, right? You see the angle is x over 2, the other 2x. That means you change the domain. And this is a more complex questions. You need to convert the trigonometry equation into a quadratic equations, all right, before you can solve it by using null factor law. Okay, this one is even more complicated. All right. So then we try to do the graphing for this question 6. Okay, so this is a paper 1 question. Okay, so that means you can't use your calculator. All right, so you need to first determine the amplitude and period. So first of all, you need to know what do we mean by the amplitude and the period. How can we find the period? Okay, so if you want to have a bit of revision, you can go back to the PowerPoints. Okay, so that's on example 3 of our trigonometry graphs handouts. Okay, so this one will show you pretty much what do we mean by how could we find the middle x, amplitude, period, okay, horizontal shift. Okay, they are indicated by the letter A, B, C, and D respectively. Okay, of course, if you want to learn it by using the graphs, you can go back to see some of the questions here, right? So we have plenty of examples, all right? Okay, right, so let's go back to the exercise, right? So remember, the form is always like, for this one, for the first, if there's a sine function, the form is always like y equals a sine b x plus c bracket plus d. All right, they indicate different things. All right, so let's focus on the first number here. A, what does it mean? Okay, so this number means amplitude. Okay, right, and how about this number? Of course, this number will mean B. Okay, and the last number, this one, is D, right? Okay, so you need to go back to the PowerPoint to see the meaning of those letters. How can we use them to sketch the graph? Okay, so what should be the first step? First step, you need to think about that D value, which is 1. This D value is what we call the equilibrium position. There are several names of it, but in a PowerPoint, I just use the horizontal middle line. Okay, right? So more technical terms, you should use equilibrium position, right? Okay, so if D is 1, that means we should draw a line y equals 1 as the middle line. So the middle line here is y equals 1. Okay, so let's first draw it. Okay, try to use this one. Okay, so oh, I forgot I need to get a number. Okay, so you see, so if I say okay, right, so if I say this is 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, and that would be a -1, okay, and then I'm going to insert, okay, and draw a line over here, which is what we call the middle axis. Okay, just make it easier to see. Okay, you've got it. All right, and okay, so that's the line which you will see that curve will the trigonometry function would be go up and down around this line. All right. The second thing you are going to do is b. All right, the value b. Okay, what do we mean by the value b? Okay, remember that's one rule. This value b is related to period. Okay, so b equals 2 pi over period. Okay, all right. So that means period equals 2 pi over b. Okay, so what would be the period in this case? All right, so we'll see period equals 2 pi over 2, which is pi. Okay, pi means 180 degree. All right. Okay, so I'm going to sketch this. I'm going to say this is 0. Okay, because I need to sketch up to 2 pi, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this one is pi over 2. This is pi. This is 3 pi over 2. This is 2 pi. All right, you just get all the values along the x-axis. Right? So after we've got period, okay, and we've got the middle line, the last thing you want to do is the amplitude. So obviously in this case, amplitude is just equals 2. All right. Okay, so the next thing is you need to look at what kind of trigonometry function. This is sine curve. So what's the shape of a sine curve? Right. So when you go back to the PowerPoint, you see the sine curve is looks like this. That's an ordinary sine curve, the most basic form of the sine curve. Okay, the sine curve always starts at the middle line and goes up and then goes down, right? So if that's a sine curve, the first point it should start is right here, right at the middle, right on the middle point. All right, and remember the period now is pi. All right, so that means for the sine curve, you pass through these 3 points, and where is the highest point? It should be between 0 and pi over 2 in this case. Okay, and the amplitude is 2, so that means you should have one more point there. All right, and from pi over 2 to pi, that's the lowest point there. Okay, so pretty much that's one period. Okay, that's one period. And how about the rest? You just repeat the form because you need to sketch up to 2 pi. Okay, and that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. Okay, right, then you try to connect them. Okay, So that would be the case. Okay, right? Okay, let's go to see the next one. Okay. So again, in this case, we see that's -3. Okay. So the amplitude is still 3, right? So let's see the value of b. From here, we know the value of b is 1/2. Okay. And so the period is 2 pi over b. That means 2 pi over 1/2. That becomes 4 pi. Okay. And we don't have c value. And the d value is -1. So, okay, so we start with d value again. Okay, we start with d value again. So d value is d equals -1. That means the horizontal middle line is on y equals -1, right? Okay, and the amplitude is 3. So you could imagine the height of the graph. Okay, the lowest point should be -1. Take 3 should be -4. The highest point should be -1 plus 3 should be 2. Okay, so we should have a sketch from somewhere -4 to 2. Okay, so let's try to get the values on the x-axis and y-axis. Okay, so what I'm going to do is this one. This time I'm going to do -1, -2, -3, -4. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and we know that the middle line is on d equals -1. That means should be here. Okay. Okay, just move these. Okay, and all right. So the next thing is we know that the amplitude is 3. And so what kind of graph it is? It looks like a cosine graph, but actually it's more like minus cosine because there's a minus sign in front of it. Okay, so you need to remember this is minus cosine graph. Okay, and the period is 4 pi. All right, so how can we get the values on the x-axis? All right, so possibly I should do it like this. Okay, so that's 4 pi. Okay, and because that's minus cosine curve. Okay, so let's go back to see the cosine curve. So this is a cosine curve, and the minus cosine, that means you need to flick this curve upside down. Okay, so that means the curve of cosine minus cosine should start with the lowest point from the middle line. All right. Okay, so if we start with the lowest point from the middle line, what should it be? Okay, it's cosine. So that's the middle line, and the amplitude is 3. So you should start with -4, right? Because the amplitude must be 3. Okay, and since the period is 4 pi, so that curve will go to 0 and pi, go to the highest point. Okay, oh sorry, go to the middle line right here. Okay, and it goes to the highest point at 2 pi. Okay, so at the highest point from the middle line, you need -1 plus 3. So here it is. There's another one. Okay, then you just connect them. All right, so here's cosine, a minus negative cosine curve, okay, with period 4 pi and amplitude 3. Is that all right? Okay, that's how can we do it. All right, so the next thing is about getting the function of for the graph. Okay, need to determine the function for the graph. Right, to determine the function of the graph, again, you need to go back to the general form. Okay, so the general form is always like y equals to a sine b bracket x plus c bracket plus d, or cosine. Okay, so first let's see what kind of graph it is. So where is the middle line? You see the middle line is right here. This is the middle line. Okay, so obviously the middle line is y equals 5. Okay, from the middle line, the curve goes up first and then goes down and goes up. So it looks like what kind of graph it is? It's a sine graph. Okay, and how about the amplitude? Amplitude means the height from the middle line to the highest point, which is 4 units. Okay. Okay, you could track this is also 4 units. So that means this 4 is just A. Okay, right? And how about the period? We see the curve repeat itself after pi. Okay, so that would be the period. So period just equals pi, right? Okay, so you've got amplitude, you've got period, and also you know that's the middle line y equals 5. Okay, so let's put things together. Okay, we know this is sine graph, so let's write y equals a sine b x plus c plus d. All right. Okay, so first A must be 4, all right? So how about B? B, because we know the period is pi, B is 2 pi of a period, 2 pi of a pi, which is 2. How about C? Is there any horizontal shift of the sine graph? No. So C equals 0. How about D? D is the position of vertical of the horizontal middle line, which is at y equals 5, so d equals 5. All right, so your answer would just be y equals 4 sine 2x, okay, because there's no c, plus 5. Okay, good. Right, so let's look at the other one. All right, so first, can you see the middle line? Okay, the middle line is just right here. Okay. Okay, which is, okay, y equals minus 1. So y equals minus 1 is the middle line. So what kind of curve it is? So it comes from the lowest point below the middle line and goes up and goes down again. So this one is a negative cos graph. It's not a cross graph. Cross graph goes starts from the highest point, right? Oh, good. And how about the amplitude? So see the amplitude here. So that's only 2 units. So A equals 2 units. Okay, so that's the absolute value of A. Okay, be careful because that's a negative cosine graph, so A should be minus 2 later on. Okay, so how about the period? We see that the graph completes one cycle in 2 pi, so period is 4 pi. Okay, the graph completes one cycle in 4 pi. Okay, so now you've got amplitude, you know it's a negative cosine graph, middle line y equals -1, period p equals 4 pi. So that's it. So this time we're going to use, because this one is negative cosine, we're going to use a cos bx plus c plus d, right? So in this case, a equals -2 because it's a negative cosine graph with an amplitude 2. B equals 2 pi over period, 2 pi over 4 pi, that's 1/2. C again, there's no horizontal shift, C equals 0. D is -1. Okay, so the graph would be -2 cos half x plus, oh sorry, it should be -1. Okay, that's it. Okay, so the next question is paper 2 questions. So again, I'm not going to do it. I will only show you the solution in the video. Wait a minute. Okay. So this is the solution. We use sine law. Remember that. Be careful here. There are 2 answers rather than 1. Okay. Okay, so let's move on to our last question. So this is a paper 2 question. Remember, for paper 2 question, you can use your calculator. Okay, so first they will give you a model. Okay, the height of both in lake is modeled by the function. Okay, so it's h versus t. T is time, obviously. So t is meter in height from the lake bed, and t measures in minutes. Okay, so h is the height, and t measures in minutes. Okay, the following is a graph. Okay, so what you're going to do is to determine the value A, B, C, and D. Okay, you need to find the values A, B, C, and D. Okay, right? And so it looks very pretty much like the question before, but in this case, there are a few things you need to be careful. First of all, you see that's not just B, it's B pi. Okay, so right now the whole thing B pi will be used as the same function as the B before. Okay, so let's see how could we find them. Obviously, this is this looks like a negative cosine. All right, so and okay, to find those values, let's find the middle line first. Okay, sure. Okay, let's find the middle line. Draw the middle line. Should be okay. Yeah, so here's the middle line, right? Okay, so you could see the middle line, and okay, so and then we need to look for other rather obvious values. Let's look at amplitude. So where's the amplitude? Amplitude is right here. Okay, so but here's some problem there. So you see the middle line of obviously is y equal 10. Okay, and the highest value is 12.3, right? So that means the amplitude you could find out as 12.3 minus 10, which is 2.3. Okay, so that's how can you get the amplitude. Okay, remember this is the absolute value of A. Okay, and how can we find the period? Okay, obviously this is from this point to this point, which is the period. This is the period. Okay, so we see this is from t equals 2 to t equals 22. So period is 22 minus 2, which equals 20 minutes. Okay. And other useful information. Okay, so let's also, you need to see this is not a orthodoxical sine curve. This is more like a sine curve shift to a negative sine curve. So this part is a negative sine curve, but it's being shifted to the right by how many units? So this is 0, so this is 2, so by 2 units. Okay, so that means there's a horizontal shift of negative sine curve to the right by 2 units. Okay, in this case, they will affect our values in C. Is that okay? Right? So let's try to use those information to do the questions of this one. The first obvious answer is for D, the value of D is just the value of the middle line, okay, the horizontal middle line, which is y equals 10, so you put D equals 10. Okay, so the other obvious value is for the period, because we know period is 20, but we know right now we multiply b pi in front of t. Okay, so that means we understand b pi equals 2 pi over period. Okay, and in that case, your b equals, okay, 2 over period, and period is 20, right? So it's 0.1. Okay, so we've got D, we've got B. So how about A? All right. So we know the amplitude is 2.3, but since this is negative sine curve, so you should put A equals minus 2.3. Okay, and how about C value? Okay, because we know that you shift the negative sine curve to the right by 2 units, so C equals negative 2. Okay, good. Right, so and part B, find the duration of time when the boat is 10 meters or higher from the lake bed within the first 25 seconds. Okay, within first 25 seconds, from 0 to 25, you need to be higher than 10 meters. Okay, we know that's the middle line is 10 meters. That means you need to find the time stay above the middle line. Okay. Okay, so which part should it be? Okay, so we know it must be higher than or equals 10. So this part, obviously, change your color, right? This part, also this part, which are higher than 10. Okay, so how long is it? So that 2 minutes there, and they are from 12 to 22. Okay, so you can say the duration of time for h greater than 10 meters is t belongs to 0 to 2, or t belongs to, okay, 12 to 22. Okay, so the total duration is 2 plus 22 minus 12, 12 minutes. Oh, sorry, it should be minutes. So I think I make a mistake in the question. It should be minutes, not seconds. Okay, change that. Okay, so that's it. Okay, good luck with your exam. All right, see you next time. Bye-bye.